The LA Clippers faced a big test on Thursday night on national television against the best team in the Western Conference, the Denver Nuggets. And oh boy, did it go wrong. The Clippers ended up being the national laughingstock on Thursday night. How did they put together such an abomination of a performance? And what does it say about the team, the coaching staff, and everyone involved? Gonna be talking about it all on today's Locked On Sad Boy Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where you can find a job better than anywhere else, or you can hire people for the job, for any job you want on LinkedIn. I am your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel known as Dime Dropper, and of course, subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube, and let me know, was this the worst game that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George played as Clippers when they played together? A game in which both of them played. Because man, oh man, people were drawing comparisons to the Dallas game, the 50-point blowout in the beginning of the 2020-2021 season, but we did not have Kawhi in that game. So this was just ridiculous. Gonna start by talking about the players, the actual performance, basketball-wise, and then we'll go to bigger picture stuff. So the Clippers obviously have lost 3 games in a row going into this one. At Boston, which, again, was a loss that could have been a win because they had the lead, a 1-point lead going into the fourth. But it's the Celtics, best team in the league at the time. It is what it is. I'm pretty sure they still have the best record in the league. And then at Indiana on New Year's Eve, that was a terrible loss. Probably the one you should have had. And then the Miami loss, not great as well. And now you expect, after losing 3 games in a row, and Kawhi and Paul George played in this game. So Kawhi is going to play against Denver and not play against Minnesota on Friday. And Paul George, considering he was questionable to even play in this game, I don't know if he's going to play on Friday either. And judging by the way that he played, it might be best to just sit him out. Because boy, oh boy, this was pathetic from everybody involved. I do think, though, so I didn't actually get to watch the game live tonight. I was at the Pepperdine basketball game, and that's relevant for one reason. Because I saw Lawrence Frank at the game. The Lawrence Frank was at the Pepperdine Santa Clara game with 2 Clipper scouts. So he wasn't even watching the game himself. I wonder if he's going to watch it back later, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to say anything about Lawrence Frank and his job, but I'm just letting you know I saw him at the game tonight. So I watched it back later. And based on what I was hearing, I thought it was going to be the worst performance in history. But honestly, I think the first quarter really said a lot of the story. I think the Clippers just got a lot of good open jumpers in the first and just didn't make shots. I don't know if it was the altitude or what it was, but they got a ton of good looks and it just didn't fall. Now, the Nuggets actually had the same defensive strategy as the Clippers tonight. With Jokic and Zubac in the pick and roll, they're going to go, Zoo is going to drop, Jokic is going to hedge hard. That's always been their strategy, that Jokic comes up and they rely on their length to rotate if a pass is made. Without Jokic, though, when anyone else is put into the action, like Jamal Murray, the Nuggets were switching 1-4, and I thought that they did a pretty good job staying in front of the ball. And this is an issue for the Clippers. This is the scouting report. If I'm a coach on another team, this is how I play the Clippers. On defense, besides your center, the Zubac pick and roll, I switch everything. Make Kawhi and Paul George play one-on-one. Because there is a thing about Kawhi that people, I think, don't mention enough. And I said it before he even played a game this season. I said, Kawhi on the Clippers, he's not the quickest guy in terms of beating guys off the bounce. He gets guys on his shoulder and creates space, but he's more of a mid-range assassin, mid-post, get to your spots guy. He's not getting all the way to the rack with his quick first step. Paul George, on the other hand, has more of that downhill creation ability. But that's exactly why they brought in John Wall, because outside of Norman Powell and Paul George, the Clippers really struggled to get that stuff. Terrence Mann and Amir Coffey are actually pretty good going downhill as well, but we know the story with them. They don't play enough. So the Clippers severely lack that. So when it comes to that, it means they really got to hit jump shots. And if they're not hitting their jump shots and they're not hitting their mid-ranges from their stars, where are the easy baskets coming from? And they were not coming tonight. If you want to consider open threes easy baskets, because for NBA players, they should be easy baskets, then the Clippers were generating those. And I took the numbers down in the first quarter to start. PG, 0 for 3. All of the shots were makeable. 2 of them were wide open threes. Kawhi Leonard, 0 for 4. All makeable shots. And you know what was weird about Kawhi? He always shoots long. He always misses short 90% of the time, it feels like. But today he had a lot of shots where he missed long, and he just put a lot of arms into it, it seemed. It wasn't like, his legs were bad or anything like that. I just felt like he was shooting it too hard. I don't know if it's because he was in the altitude and he felt like he had to put a little more on his shot, but he was just shooting it long. And then, the Nuggets overall were just a step quicker. And that's normal. They're usually a step quicker than teams at home. The Nuggets, because of the altitude, they've always been a good home team, no matter what era. I remember the Iverson-Melo teams used to run teams out the gym. Obviously, the Billups-Melo team was even better than that Iverson team, and they were good. The 2013 rendition with Ty Lawson, Aaron Aflalo, Kenneth Farid, the no-star post-Melo trade Nuggets, those guys had an amazing home record. So this doesn't shock me that the Nuggets were going to come out and punch the Clippers in the face a little bit. And one of the things that really disappointed me, though, was the Nuggets. Obviously I said they were a step quicker, but Aaron Gordon had 6 points on Paul George in the first 6 minutes. One on a backdoor cut where Jokic found him, and Jokic was not even looking to score like that in this game, which made it almost even more embarrassing, you can even say. But he found Aaron Gordon on a backdoor cut, and then Aaron Gordon literally ran all the way underneath the basket with Paul George and sealed him and got a layup as if Paul George was a little guard. And then the third time he hit a one-legged fade in the post over him. So Paul George, being one of our better defenders, should not be getting 6 points scored on him by Aaron Gordon in the first 5 minutes of a game. Paul George was just not it tonight. He got no easy baskets. He didn't go to the rim. He just shot a bunch of jumpers and missed literally every single one except for the last one he shot. And mind you, Ty Lue didn't even stagger Kawhi and Paul tonight because Paul was on a minutes restriction. So they were both on the bench at the same time, and that wasn't pretty either. So Paul George, he probably should not play against Minnesota because he just did not perform. He didn't even play out there. He didn't even look like he tried. So I got nothing to say about Paul George in that. It's just he played like garbage, in my opinion, just to be frank. Just to be real honest. He didn't play well. He played terribly. And I think he could say that himself. Other than that, defensively, we conceded 32 points in the first quarter, which is not outlandish for this era, especially with how good the Nuggets offense is. And one of the toughest things to guard in the NBA, Murray-Jokic pick and roll. And the Clippers have had their struggles over the years with guarding Murray-Jokic pick and roll. You really have to pick your poison. You can't switch that because Jokic will kill your mismatch. So, obviously, when they put Zoo in the pick and roll, it's going to be drop coverage. And if Reggie Jackson's guarding Murray, which he was, that's not going to be much resistance getting over a screen. So Murray, what the Clippers were doing was Zoo was actually doing a decent job of giving him, contested floaters, or Murray was coming off screens and getting into step backs. But with Reggie Jackson chasing him over those screens, he knows he's going to still get decent looks. And Jamal Murray is a supremely talented scorer. And against the Clippers, he seems to find the best version of himself. He had 10 straight points at the second half of that first quarter, and he really helped get the lead further and further. And mind you, no John Wall in this game, sitting out the first of a back-to-back. That means he'll play against Minnesota. But also no Nico Batum, who, even though he played against Miami, did not play in this one because of the ankle injury. So you saw more Rocco tonight, which was nice. You saw Terrence come in. So you had a lineup of Kawhi, Terrence, Rocco, Norm, and Kennard. And again, given the situation, which was what I will say was weird about it, though, was that lineup came in when Jokic was still in the game. And funny enough, they didn't get burned that badly before Jokic came out. But Luke Kennard, he just couldn't buy a bucket either. It was one of the worst shooting games I've seen him have in a long, long time. So again, it was literally one of those nights to me where the Clippers just couldn't hit anything and the Nuggets were hitting basically everything. They were hitting a lot of their threes. I mean, KCP in the second quarter went Ray Allen on us. Like, he was just pulling up from deep in transition and just not missing. Most of his shots, I will say, were pretty good looks, but he was just not missing. Now, instead of Kawhi being replaced by Paul George to start the second quarter, it was Zubats replacing Kawhi to start the second quarter without Jokic in the game. So then when Jokic came back in the game, Zoo was out. So it was just kind of weirdly disproportionate in the way that it just kind of didn't really make sense, in my opinion. And the Clippers were down 32-15 after one. They were 1 for 11 from deep and 4 for 21 from the field overall. And in the second quarter, the Nuggets bench really played well. As I said, KCP played really well, was hitting threes left and right. And I think the Clippers' transition defense in this game was no good. And I know that's a thing with every team that plays Denver. I don't know how fast they are. I don't think they play too fast of a pace. But when they do get out and run against these teams at home, you really got to get back in transition, and sometimes it's just hard because I know they're winded with the altitude. But there's no excuse. The effort tonight, here's my issue. The Clippers have lost 3 games in a row, and you're on national television in front of everyone in a marquee Western Conference showdown, potential playoff preview in ways if you get matched up with them, because you might have to see this team down the line. And you don't play with maximum effort. I don't think the effort was as piss poor as people might say tonight. I think they just literally missed shots and Nuggets were making everything, and then it kind of was a chain reaction. But there is no excuse for why you shouldn't be playing extremely hard, losing 3 games in a row with championship aspirations. That's unacceptable. And even at one point, Ty Lue did go with a 3-guard set. He put Reggie back in with 9 minutes to go in the second quarter instead of Robert Covington, who had kind of just come in the game. So he went with Reggie, Powell, and Kennard. And thankfully, he didn't go with it for too long, but it just wasn't really helping. And Luke Kennard, he had 2 turnovers in a row in that KCP stretch. He was really struggling. Nobody was hitting shots. Even Kawhi, who I thought was like, okay. He wasn't good, obviously. He wasn't good at all. But in terms of effort, I thought he was okay. I don't think he tried super hard. I've seen him try harder, but I've also seen him not try as hard. But it is what it is, right? You just expect more of a reaction. And I think it starts on the stars. But that being said, no one played well for the Clippers tonight. I mean, Reggie Jackson, how long are we going to continue with this? I think it's time that he gets his minutes severely cut. I think it's time he doesn't start anymore, honestly, because I don't think he's giving enough on both ends of the floor to warrant him starting on a team with championship aspirations. If we're a team that wants to win 41 games, 42 games like last season, then Reggie Jackson's great. But what we saw in 2021 was kind of a flash in the pan with Patrick Beverley out so many games and he caught fire, and Paul George and Kawhi were on the court a little bit more. I think that's just, and he's, 2 years older, and let's be real, Reggie Jackson's had a lot of mileage since then. He's played so many minutes for us, meaningful minutes. He needs to be in a reduced role, and you can maybe say the same about Marcus Morris because, oh boy, it wasn't pretty. But coming up, going to be talking about the second half, Ty Lue's decision to pull the starters out at halftime and throw in the towel damn near. Going to be talking about it and more. We're not going anywhere. Coming up. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. I got my Rams ambassador job on LinkedIn, and I really, really loved it. It was a great time, and LinkedIn did that for me. And LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools if you're looking to hire. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications all on one platform. It's a new year, and it's time to achieve new goals with your work and your business. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's get back to it. So the Clippers were down 66-32 at halftime. They were outscored 34-17 in the second quarter, and I got to give credit to the Nuggets bench. Bones Highland was fantastic. He was putting on a show, and that guy is a microwave. When he gets going, he is impossible to guard. He's got a great first step. He gets to the rim with ease. He's got a really streaky jump shot and range on it. But when he's not going, it can be ugly because he's one of those guys, I think, when his shot's not falling, how is he contributing on the other end kind of deal, like a typical 6-man. But tonight he had it going. And there was even one shot where in the second quarter where Robert Covington switched onto him and was all up in his face, and he just drained the 3 over him. But I do like the switchability of Rocco and what he brings to the table. He cuts off the ball a bit. He actually ended up, surprisingly, believe it or not, Even though the Clippers lost by 31 points, he actually ended up in the positive and plus minus because he played a lot of garbage time. But 8 points for him, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. He still is struggling from 3, though. 0 for 4, and 1 or 2 of those were just unnecessary. So even when he plays, I think Rocco takes some unnecessary threes. But the pros outweigh the cons, and I think that Rocco does more things than guys like Reggie, guys like Senior, even when his shot's not falling. The Clippers desperately miss Nico Batum tonight off the bench. No question about it. But one player, a role player, is not going to make a difference when the mentality is like that. This game was bound to be a loss because the Nuggets just played harder. They were better. And you can just tell that right now they are a far better team. The Clippers made the decision to throw the towel in, or should I say wave the white flag, or try something new at halftime, given that they had a back-to-back. However, if Kawhi doesn't play on Friday, what's the point of sitting him like that? You're giving up at halftime? We've seen the Clippers come back from 30-plus points down with less time on the clock. I understand it's a much better team, and credit to the Nuggets. They did not take their foot off the gas. But Jamal Murray and Jokic are playing against Moses Brown, Amir Coffey, and Brandon Boston in the third quarter, to start the quarter. I mean, Brandon Boston didn't start the third quarter, but he played significant minutes in that third. But they went with a whole different lineup in the third quarter to start. Moses Brown started against Jokic. So, I mean, that's just putting him in a tough position. And the funny part is they still tried harder than the starters. And who was leading the charge? Terrence Mann, of course. Getting out in transition, going to the basket. He even threw down a dunk with authority that made me, and picking up guys full court. Where we would be without that guy, protect him at all costs. Because, again, I'm going to keep saying it, he needs to play 25-plus minutes every game because there is no substitute, because clearly not everyone in the NBA does the bare minimum of playing hard every night. But that guy, doesn't matter if it's an afternoon game, a night game, we're down 30 or we're up 30 or we're in a close game, he plays his butt off every second that he's in. And that's why any team would like a guy like that, and that's why he needs to play 25-plus minutes. He doesn't get tired either. I mean, just Terrence Mann, thank you. Thank you for always giving your giving your everything and going 100%. Because, and the funniest part is when he came out of the game in that third quarter and the Clippers had cut it down to 30. I know, cut it down to 30. The Clippers, again, just stopped trying when he comes out. Even the bench. It's just appalling. The fact that the game is over at halftime and everyone's watching. I mean, this was a nationally televised game. I saw people from other fan bases on Twitter talking about how they were excited to watch this marquee Western Conference matchup, and we go out and lay an egg like that in front of the world. It's so embarrassing, honestly. And I really think it wasn't as big of a lack of effort thing as people might make it out to be. And I'm quick to say that teams don't play hard in the NBA. I'm quick to say it in the regular season that teams don't show up. And I think you can say that they didn't show up, but I think, honestly, if those shots fell in the beginning of the game, you see a little bit of a difference. You get to set your defense. It just changes momentum making shots. And that's what Ty said after the game. But Ty, I don't agree with his decision to sit the starters at half. I think Reggie could have been benched and Paul George could have been benched. But Kawhi, Zubats, and Senior, I don't think they should have. I mean, Zubats was doing okay. He was actually keeping Joker in check. He had 8 points and 5 rebounds. So he was on track for a double-double. Senior was 3 for 7. I mean, he was 1 for 4 from deep. That sucked. But he wasn't doing anything terribly out of character. Kawhi Leonard was 2 for 7, but the thing about Kawhi is he eventually gets it going because he takes high percentage shots. Paul and Reggie, they could have sat out the rest of the game. But to me, by sitting everybody and starting Moses Brown in the third quarter, you are saying we're going for tomorrow. We're worried about the back-to-back. And that's what he said in the press conference. And again, it's just the way we just take losses like they don't mean anything, it all adds up. And now the Clippers are 21-19. 21-19. After Friday, and I can't wait for that podcast that I'm going to do, because after Friday, we are going to be officially at the halfway point of the season. So for all those people that said to me after I came out here harsh and quote-unquote negative, I don't think it's negative. I don't like saying that the Clippers aren't playing well and that we're not a good team and all this. I'm a biggest fan out here, as much as anybody. This is my observation. I want to really emphasize this. All throughout my life, I was the optimistic kid. For anybody that watched my rant when we lost in the bubble. I said it then. I was the optimistic kid my whole life. To be a Clipper fan, you have to be some sort of an optimist because you had to have kept believing that we could win a championship even with that slumlord racist Sterling being in charge of this franchise. So you have to be optimistic to some degree to be a fan of this team. You have to be. And I'm no different. But throughout Lob City, I was the guy that said we're going to come back next year. It's going to be okay. I kept the faith in Chris and Blake the whole time. And I was borderline bullied in high school by Laker fans whenever we lost in the playoffs or anything of that nature. Because I was so enthusiastic and I wouldn't even talk trash. I would just be confident and enthusiastic about my squad only for them to let me down. So when I see certain tendencies, I'm old enough now, 18 years watching ball, and then also studying the game as much as I do in past eras to see the championship tendencies. And I thought that the Clippers were gifted an easy schedule to start the season, but no, it was too early. The players weren't healthy. It doesn't matter. We're still tinkering Ty and working things out. How many years of the same story are we going to hear this? I mean, how many years is going to be the same story? 4 years of this 2-1-3 era, and we're saying the same things. TNT is saying the same things. Lack of continuity, lack of chemistry. The Nuggets, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter were out, but, they missed some back-to-backs here and there, but they've gotten a chance to play with one another and build some good habits, and their best player plays every night he can, damn near, except for maybe, a couple games missed here and there for rest. Other than that, they're on the court frequently, and you can see what they're doing right now. They're building championship habits. They look like a team that's going to be there down the line. Do the Clippers? Absolutely not. Now, we still got the whole second half of the season to play, and if Kawhi and Paul George stay healthy, there's a good chance they can turn it around. But there needs to be some serious changes made. And I don't know if that means roster changes, but in rotation changes, absolutely. Reggie Jackson starting lineup, that may have to go. Reggie Jackson playing significant minutes may just have to go when everyone's healthy. And Marcus Morris Sr., he should have his minutes reduced a little bit too. And you obviously know the guys that need to play more, Terrence Mann and Rocco. That's obvious. But overall, I think the mentality to start the season is really what has hurt the Clippers. It's kind of like, yes, the Clippers have had some injuries, but I know there are some games where the Clippers just want to be extra cautious. Now, I know I'd rather them be healthy than not risk it and get hurt. I obviously want the players to be healthy. But that being said, at what expense? Because you risk injury every time you step on that court. And I don't mind Kawhi sitting back-to-back because I know what his condition is. But the overall hesitancy, and it's not even just the cautious approach with injuries. It's the whole, we're still figuring it out. We're still tinkering. It's like, in my opinion, we should have a set rotation when everyone's healthy. When Kawhi or Paul are missing a game, we should also have a rotation that we know we're going to go to and it's going to be okay. And we're going to have replacements for those guys in the spots that we need. And then when neither of them play, we have something then too. And I know it's so much easier said than done. That sounds like a lot me just saying it. And that's why I think Ty's job is not very easy. And he should be given some slack. But the whole playing too many guards thing, I mean, that's just a blatantly obvious thing that doesn't just apply to the Clippers, but the entire league. And the difference is the Clippers actually have wings on their roster. So there's no excuse there. To me, it's all about the mentality they started the season with. And everyone was saying those 2 OKC games didn't mean anything, but they showed me a lot because in those first 10 games, the Clippers had such a good opportunity to go 8-2 or something, and that would have built the vibes and the chemistry and the momentum and the rhythm to potentially have, one, a safety net when the tougher part of the schedule came along, but also some great vibes, some rhythm to maybe kick on and build. Look what happened with the Warriors last year. Their good start is the only reason they ended up in that 3 seed because they had injuries and everything, but it was that great start they got off to, taking advantage of an easy schedule where they built those vibes. And to me, the Clippers, they have this attitude of if we're healthy, it doesn't matter what seed we are. No one wants to see us in the playoffs. No one is scared of us because we haven't proven anything. We made it to the conference finals one time, and quite frankly, I think the fact that Kawhi got hurt and everybody could say if Kawhi had played, we would have won the championship has papered over the cracks. And made people think that this team is a championship team when everyone's healthy. Well, let me tell you something, buddy. That Utah Jazz team that was the number 1 seed was pretty fraudulent if you want to compare them to the rest of the Western Conference the last 20 years. The Suns team did not play one healthy team when they made the championship. That was a weaker West than this, in my opinion. And just saying, the Clippers did not make their lives any easier in that playoffs either. They were down 2-0 in 2 straight series. To think that they would have just continued to climb out of holes the entire playoffs may be seen as a little far-fetched in itself. The Clippers needed to take the regular season seriously for once in this 2-1-3 era to build good habits and go into the playoffs saying we know how to play with each other, we know who's going to play on a given night, we know our basketball philosophy on both ends of the floor, and we're comfortable with one another because we've played with each other frequently. But that is not the case. It's all about waiting for the playoffs to turn it on like we've done it before. I've never seen a team that's not won the championship have this kind of attitude. This is the attitude for a team like the 0-1 Lakers or the Warriors last year, teams that have been there, done that, and have been over the hump with a certain group of players that know that all they need to do is be there because they've done it before. The Clippers have not done it before. They've been to the conference finals once and their best player didn't play. That is not a good enough resume to come out with this attitude of the regular season don't matter. It's all about being healthy in the playoffs. No, you got to have a good season and show you're a good team. Because just because we have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George don't mean we're that good of a team. Right now, we're bang average at best. We're bang average at best. And how many times do you have to be humbled to be humble? Because the Clippers organization top down, this regular season doesn't really matter. And we're just, we're still tinkering. We're still figuring it out for the 4th straight year. I know lives haven't been made any easier with the injuries. But come on, man. Same old story every year. And I'm tired of it. And a lot of Clipper fans are tired of it. It's time to put something together. A real product that can contend for a championship together in the coming weeks. Because the roster is good enough. I don't believe it's not. But you got to utilize it a different way because right now, this ain't it. And coming up, going to be closing out the show with our final thoughts. Stick with me. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup. We've got it all at betonline.net. Couple of games on the slate for Friday. One of them, Philadelphia and Chicago. Chicago with a big win against the Brooklyn Nets. Broke their streak the other day. The line is +5, and Joel Embiid is questionable to play. Honestly, I would take the Bulls bet on the spread. They're +165 on the money line. You could also place your bets on Knicks and Raptors. Also, Nets and Pelicans, probably the game of the day tomorrow or on Friday. Just head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, to close it out, I saw a lot of stuff on the timeline, the Twitter timeline tonight, or Thursday night, talking about Ty Lue needs to go. I don't agree with that. I'm never going to agree with that until the season is over. If he really, really continues to coach poorly and to not get the most out of this roster, then yes, we can consider maybe changing coaches. But until then, it's not fair to a coach that made history for the Clippers, and I still believe he's going to get it right. I truly do. But I want to see the players care more. I want to see more emphasis on the regular season matters. I think that's really the main issue and takeaway from this episode. We can talk about X's and O's and all this all we want, but the regular season matters. I keep saying this because I'm a Clipper fan and I know our history. The Clippers have never had a top 2 seed except for once, and that was the bubble season. So realistically, we've never had a top 2 seed and we've never made the finals. And people think that the two aren't correlated. Of course they are. I'm going to keep saying it. Besides the 69 Celtics and 95 Rockets, no team has finished below the 3 seed that has won the championship. So that's the target. Can the Clippers still do that? Absolutely. But they're 21-19. Kawhi Leonard had 6 points in this game and only played one half. And that bodes the question. Is he going to play against Minnesota? He absolutely should because he didn't play tonight. That doesn't count as a game to me. That was a joke. He played one half. I hope Ty Lue sat him because he's going to play on Friday. If he does not play on Friday and they sat him out the entire second half, I am going to be livid. Like, that's disgraceful if that's the case. Because at the very least, at least let him play and get a little rhythm to take into whatever next game. I mean, at this point, minutes and reps for Kawhi in-game are not a bad thing, no matter if we're being down by 30 or we're up 30. Actually, if we're up 30, it's good to take him out. But, him playing is a good thing for the Clippers. And Paul George, 1 for 9, 3 points in the game. Just ridiculous. Shouldn't have even played. Terrence Mann, 12 points and on 5 for 9 shooting in 24 minutes. Robert Covington, 8 points on 3 for 9 in 23 minutes. Norman Powell actually shot well, 13 points on 6 for 11 shooting. He did his thing. And Luke Kennard, 2 for 9, 0 for 5 from deep. So trust me, you are not going to see shooting nights like that from Luke Kennard often. I can promise you that. He's in a little bit of a funk right now, but he'll break out of it very soon. I think he honestly could on Friday. Overall, the Clippers shot 37% from the field and 5 for 37 from deep. 13.5%. And here's the craziest kicker of them all. They only turned the ball over 7 times, which is amazing. They just were broke. They could build the way that they were doing it. The Intuit Dome could be ready by next year with the bricks they were helping build or putting up, I should say. Luke Kennard, 0 for 5 from deep. Yeah, 5 for 37 as a team is just not going to get it done on the road against one of the best teams in basketball. And the Nuggets, they finished 39% from 3, but they were 12 for 25, I believe, going into the fourth quarter, or 15 for 26, something like that. It was either 12 for 25 or 15 for 26. Oh, I'm sorry, it can't be 15 for 26 because they didn't even make 15. But I think it was 12 for 25 going into or 13 for 25. I think it was 13 for 25 going into the fourth. So they were just lights out. They were lights out. They played great. Kanshar, that Vlatko Kanshar guy, came off the bench and was really impressive. He was switching on to Kawhi and Paul, and he was staying in front, and he had a really nice fast break dunk, and he made a 3 as well. So he shot a little bit of everything. That was impressive. And then Busy Bones Highland, 16 points off the bench. Najee had 13 points and 6 rebounds off the bench, and that's the funniest part of the Nuggets bench has been a weakness. Their defense has been a weakness this season. But I think, and I've watched actually a good amount of Nuggets games relative to the other teams around the league. I think their defense is actually not that bad. And they have decent personnel. I think it's really just what mood Murray and Jokic are in defensively. I think that can dictate a lot. And obviously their bench. But Bruce Brown, KCP, Aaron Gordon, these are good defenders. And when Michael Porter Jr. is engaged, he has such good size that he can actually be a decent defender at times. So I think, honestly, they're going to start climbing up the defensive ranks. I think they'll probably finish around 10 to 15 by the end of the season. And again, they will probably finish first in the West, and I don't mind that. I think that was a team that I knew before the season they'll probably be in championship contention or better than the Clippers, and that's fine in the regular season. That's fine. But it's the other teams, the Dallases, the Phoenixes, the New Orleans, and the Memphis, where the Clippers need to just, come on, get it together. We should be better than these teams. But I digress. Main takeaways. Terrible performance, but a little bit of just their night and not ours in the most extreme fashion. Sometimes you have those nights where you can't make anything and they're making everything. And that was one of those nights. Was the effort good enough? No, but I've seen a lot worse. We've seen worse this season, like against Sacramento. I think the first OKC game was even worse. You could even argue both OKC games were worse, if I'm being honest. Because at least this is a really good team. And then the second half, they didn't even get a chance. The starters didn't even get a chance to make up for their mediocre effort. It was just the bench. So I just want to see the team try to act like regular season games matter for once, because this is not enjoyable. Like, Lob City in the regular season was more enjoyable than this. And listen, I'm not saying we can't win the championship. I'm still not going to say that. And I'm not saying we can't turn it around. But 40 games in, this is not a very good basketball team. They're very average. They're very disappointing. They've lost 4 games in a row. Their chemistry looks suspect. Their continuity looks as if they haven't been a team and they just got a brand new roster, when in reality, the only new players we got were John Wall and Moses Brown. Norman Powell, yes, he didn't play that much last season, but he still was with the team last year. He still had training camp and whatnot with the squad. Rocco played enough last season to be familiar with these guys. I know those guys didn't play with Kawhi, but Norm played with them in Toronto. Like, the Clippers act as if they have just built a whole new roster this season. And it shouldn't be that way in 4 years into this 2-1-3 era. It shouldn't be. But I digress. The great thing about the NBA and basketball is you have a chance to make it up right away. You don't have to wait a week like soccer or football to play again. So the Clippers are right back on the horse on Friday against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they haven't been playing that great. No Karl-Anthony Towns. Let's see what the Clippers can do. They sure are well rested because they didn't even show up tonight, and the starters didn't play the entire second half. But that flight, Denver to Minnesota, I know it's not that short, and it's going to be a tough game indeed, especially with guys like Anthony Edwards, who's athletic as hell, and the Clippers really seem to struggle with those kind of teams. But anyways, that's it for this episode. I will be talking to you on either late Friday night, the episode will be released, or Saturday morning. Probably Saturday morning is a more likely bet. And hopefully I'm not talking about the 5th loss in a row and a 21-20 Clipper team. Hopefully I'm talking about the Clippers breaking the losing streak and are now 22-19 as we reach the halfway point of the season. A man can hope. But we'll see who plays. If Kawhi even plays, I doubt Paul George will play considering the way he played in this one. If John Wall's going to be back, and hopefully he can have a good performance. Nico Batum, I am not sure, but we shall see. All I can say is keep the faith, Clipper Nation. I know it's looking really, really bleak right now. And if you're a fan of another team just listening to this because you want to see why the championship favorites before the season Clippers are doing so badly, well, it's a mix of lack of continuity and Ty Lue not having a great season right now as a coach with decision making. And Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris, but mainly Reggie Jackson just, not being a starting perk on a championship team. I think it's time to have that conversation. But anyways, let me know if you think this was the worst game for Kawhi Leonard and Paul George as the Clippers in a game that they played together. Please let me know. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, due to the fact that I was at that Pepperdine game that Lawrence Frank was also at. I didn't get a chance to just go crazy on my own channel today, so you should still shoot a subscription though on Dime Dropper, and of course subscribe to Locked On Clippers, your 5-day-a-week Clipper podcast. You know the age-old proverb, go Clippers, even when we play like ass. Have a great day, and we'll be back on Friday night or Saturday after the Timberwolves game.